The year 2024 for Tesla will go down as a major inflection point where finally Tesla's story is beginning to be understood. Those of us long-term bulls who have been laughed at for once crazy forecasts are now being heralded as many investors are finally starting to understand. Today, I'll be interviewing Randy Kirk, who will make the case for a Tesla share price of $10,000 by 2030 based on what he says are conservative assumptions. He'll walk us through the surprises he expects for the upcoming earnings call in January and his list of milestones for Optimus throughout 2025. Thank you so much, Randy. Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be on, as always, Herbert.
Love it. So you and I have been having a number of these shows. I did 3 or 4 with you a year and a half, 2 years ago, a year and a half. And then you were very uber bullish. You were very bullish. And it was tough for many investors to hear that. It was really tough when they see the stock falling, and they see the stock struggling. All of what had happened the last 2 years. You stuck to your guns. This is my number. How are you feeling about that? And what kind of feedback are you getting from people at this point?
Well, my feedback has always been good, actually, even people that don't agree, with my crazy optimism. But, obviously right now, everybody's very excited about the run up. Everybody's wondering. I'm even wondering, exactly what caused this immediate stimulus. What is causing, today's run up was just crazy. Totally didn't expect it even after the last few days. I'm counting it. I'm looking at obviously the big Trump bump as being part one, but then part two, I think, was the Bank of America note that was out a couple of weeks ago that mentioned Optimus in the note. I think that gave the rest of the investing community the opportunity to start taking Optimus into consideration. And I think that's what this run-up is all about. Sure, the V13, version 13 coming out, all the great reports about it, yes, that's impacting as well. But I really think it comes down to the big thing. The big deal is Optimus. That's where the real money is going to be.
Interesting that you say that. I'm not so sure personally. I think that it's gone straight up since November 5th. But we've seen a number of the analysts give one price hike after another. Now we're hearing 400, 500 numbers, but that's mostly because they're catching to their stock price. And we're seeing them talk about autonomy and robotaxi. Only one of them has talked about bots, and that's Morgan Stanley. They finally have kind of a model. So you do think that somehow they saw the bot, they're seeing the FSD, and that's what's really driving this at this point?
Yeah, again, we did kind of have a little plateau. It was like 3 or 4 days. And because on my show, of course, every morning, my morning show, that's what we talk about is what's going to happen that day. And did it plateau? Is it going up or down? But the plateau ended right about the time that Bank of America note came out. And up until then, yeah, I believe that probably at least $100 of what's in the stock already is about Optimus from the 10 million retail investors that understand it. Well, not all of them do fully, but a lot of them understand that Optimus is the ultimate play. Elon Musk says Optimus is the ultimate play. But when Bank of America provided permission among the normal, if you will, the basic investing group, I think that's where the second leg really started to take off. And again, it's not all that. The V13 is important. It's making a big difference in terms of people's belief. I haven't ridden in it yet. I'm still on level 12, but my version 12 works just fine, thank you. No interventions at all.
Yeah, okay, that's good. All right, so you are sticking to your guns. I think when I interviewed you about a year ago, you said 11 businesses, and we went through all 11 businesses. You outlined how they're going to grow over time. And you had a $10,000 stock price by 2030. Is any of that changed at all?
Not really. I've been a little disappointed at some of the growth, say in energy, a little disappointed in the growth in the semi-truck. I thought both of those would be further along at this point. I'm very impatient. I want everything tomorrow. I thought maybe that, as we all did, that robotaxi and full self-driving would be further along than it is. Even Elon, has always thought it was 2 weeks away. So are we a little behind on some of these things? But it doesn't take much to catch up. once the Shanghai energy factory, mega factory, as Bradford Ferguson likes to call it, once the mega factory is finished over there, I think that might become the design, and then cookie cuttering those all over the world should be a lead pipe cinch. The semi factory, that's really taking longer than I expected. I thought that would have been built a year ago, and we'd be on. And Elon said it would be 40,000 this year. Now it's 40,000 in 2026. Brian Wong thinks it'll be 4 million someday a year. I think it'll be 1 million units a year, and that million units a year is not just about the million semi trucks at probably very, very good profits, but every one of those million will have FSD and will be automated and will be paying nice amounts of money for that automation. So these are huge businesses. The semi business, the energy business might be larger than Apple is now on their own before we ever get to regular building cars and something called robotaxi and something called Optimus.
I love it. Okay, so walk me through each year of what you're expecting by, let's say, 2027 and then by 2030.
Okay, let's see. So 2025 is almost here. So I did a bunch of shows. In fact, I think you and I might have talked about it one time. I've been saying for at least 18 months, maybe longer, that 2026 is the key year. 2026 is the year that everything comes together. All the product lines will be working. Robotaxi will be out there. Optimus will be out there. Energy storage will be big. Everything will be obvious and working and getting return on investment. In 2025, I've been saying for that 18 months, in 2025, I thought it would be late in 2025 is when the street would get it. And the street would go, okay, now we see. So now, and I've expected the really big run up in 2025. Right now, I'm expecting that run up to be on the order of 700 to 1,000, as opposed to, I mean, the 700 to 1,000 doesn't change, but I didn't expect it to be running up to 500 now. So this is a little bit throwing a little bit of a wrench in. But no, I think I go with Elon. I listen to what Elon says. And he said, as far as I recall, and maybe I've got it wrong, my understanding of what Elon said was we will have full self-driving middle of the year this year, sometime, probably the middle of the year. And that's when robotaxis, that you're in my robotaxi, the one that you can put your car and send it out there and turn it into a robotaxi, earning money for you, that'll be happening in California and Texas in 2025. That's going to impact the stock in a big way. I believe he also said that, I know 100% sure, he said there'll be thousands of Optimi working in the factories in 2025. And then they'll be for sale or for rent in 2026. And he recently said either for sale or for rent. He hasn't apparently made a final decision on that. So in 2026, we'll have Optimi out there being sold. We will have robotaxis and cyber cabs by the hundreds of thousands, I think. So 2025, 700 to 1,000 by the end of the year in terms of the stock. 2026, all guns blazing, double the profit at least over 2025, which will be double the profit over 2024.
Okay, keep going. So you're thinking 700 to 1,000 next year, 2025, end of 2025.
Okay, so
yeah, 2026.
You got double the profit, but what's going to happen then is you're going to start to see an exponentiality start to happen. I'm hoping that they rent the robots. That's my goal, is that they rent them. I think they should rent them for about a $60,000 a year profit. So if it's the real cost of the bot is about $10,000 a year for Tesla, then they would rent them for $70,000. But and a lot of us, I think even Herbert, you might have come to that same number. But I know Cern Basher and others have all come to that $60,000 a year kind of estimate that would be fair, reasonable, that every company would be more than happy to pay the $60,000. So when that starts to happen, and those are actually in the field, they're actually doing the work, and the street begins to be able to put this exponentiality on it, and then either I'm affirmed or I'm not affirmed. Here's the big one. Even Warren, even Warren doesn't agree with me on this one. The
Uh-huh.
other Uber bull, I
Yeah.
think they'll make 1 million Optimi in 2027. They'll go from 100,000 to 1 million. That will be the real, that'll be kind of the end of time, if you will. It'll be the thing that changes everything. As Elon says, it'll change economics, and then people will be able to
Yeah.
take that exponent and say, well, okay, maybe it's 100 million in 2030.
It does sound really, really crazy, but I will share a couple data points why it may not be as crazy as people think. Okay. First of all, it's crazy. Let's don't at me, don't at Randy. Okay. It's crazy. But the point that I was going to make was, as you know, I've interviewed almost every CEO of every humanoid bot companies that matter.
Right.
And I asked them the question, what is your path to growth? And they all said the same thing, which is each year is a 10x. Just use that as your guide.
Yeah.
So if they make 10 last year, it'll be about 100 in 2025. It'll be 1,000, 10,000, to a lot. So if Elon is already at 1,000 by next year, then you get to 10,000, then you get 100,000, then you get 1 million. Now, 2027 is a little early to get to 1 million. That's pretty rushing it. Having said that, right, if they've got it design locked, this is a lot easier to make. Maybe it's going to go faster than he says. But remember that there was one post by Smokeaway, and he laid it out each year how many, and Elon said it's a little too aggressive. So you might have to push it by a year or two.
Yeah, the way I look at it, and the way Scott Walter looks at it, who's an expert in robotics, is that this is going to be easier to build than a car by far. It's smaller than a car, doesn't take up as much room. The factory is not nearly as complex. You're not talking about these giant, stamping machines and whatnot. The line is far less complex. In fact, I kind of laid it out. I've laid out factories in my life, and I kind of laid out that you could build 1 million of these in a 300,000 square foot factory.
Yeah.
So I think it should be able to ramp faster than a car. And so if it ramps faster than a car, that would say 100,000 the first year, 1 million the second year.
Yeah, 100,000 is not that crazy at all, because the Cybertruck is already at 50, 60,000 for the first year.
Right.
250 the next year, or 200 like that, and 400 the next, whatever it is. So it sounds like that bots is what takes us to 10,000 by 2030.
Well, it's part of it. So again, I just go off of what Elon said, and Elon said, "Look, we can do 100 million of these a year at some point." He also said that there would be the value of the company just on bots would be 25 trillion.
Yeah,
25 trillion. He didn't say what year. So this is the complex factor, is he didn't give us a year on that 10 trillion. I'll call it 2030, maybe it's 2031. I don't really care. And then he said that Kathy was right. Kathy Wood was right, or close to right, or he really liked her analysis with regard to robotaxi. She puts the high value of Tesla, the company, and she's a little unclear on this. I wish I had a chance to ask her the question. She says the company would be 7.5 trillion and in 2029. And I wasn't sure, I'm not clear on whether that's just robotaxi or whether that's the rest of the company without Optimus, because she doesn't include Optimus in that number.
No Optimus.
Yeah. But if she might be meaning the cars and the energy and the trucks and everything, and robotaxi, or maybe she means robotaxi standing alone. So it's not totally clear to me. Either way, that's 32 trillion between those two. So if you're at 32 trillion divided by 3.3 billion shares, you're talking about $10,000 a share.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll come back to this a little bit. We'll come back to the bots. We're going to go through every one of the milestones that you laid out for Tesla bots in the next year or two. But let's get right to January. So it's January, we're going to have the earnings call, and you laid out some potential surprises. You want to explain this to us?
Sure. So, we have some stuff that we kind of know, and I didn't include in this any surprises like, a lot more money on energy storage, because I think the people that are really in watching carefully already know that the energy storage number might come in pretty good. But I think these are ones that nobody's paying attention to. And the first one is a little sketchy. I've done some research since I put this up,
Yeah.
but because people were calling me on it. But the Bitcoin profit is there. Okay. They've made over $1 billion on Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Typically, you have to declare your losses, but you don't declare your profits on your P&L. It's there. You could sell it the next day and get the money, but you don't declare it. But there's evidence out there. I even asked Grok, and Grok says, yes, there's a lot of chatter that there's going to be a change in the way that the way Tesla accounts for Bitcoin, and that they might be taking the profit in the first quarter on the
just on the books
and the P&L.
just on the books. Yeah.
So no change in anything except it'll be shown. Okay.
Yeah.
So again, we'll see what happens on that one. That would be $1 billion. Number 2 would be FSD profit recognition due to almost feature complete. So what we're talking about here is, I think they're only taking about 75% of the incoming money from the FSD cash in terms of showing it on the profit and loss. And that, I think, features complete. I think version 13, I don't think there's any features that are left to be rolled out. Now, you could make an argument that between now and the end of December, does everybody get it on every kind of car with, hardware 3, hardware 4, Cybertruck, et cetera? Okay, maybe we're only at 95% or something, but there should be a fairly substantial increase in the amount taken. And that's not taken over just the cars that were sold this year. That's taken on the cars that have been sold since the beginning of FSD. It's a big number. So that could be a big profit surprise. Margin increase due to IRA battery money. Nobody talks about it. Nobody talks about this. The IRA is not just the $7,500 that is, that you as a consumer get to take when you buy a car. It's on every single battery, and it's big money. So on every battery that we make, we get $35 a kilowatt hour. And then every battery that we put into a pack that we buy from somebody else that's made in the United States, I believe, are a partner nation, not China. There you get $10. Well, that's a lot of money. And I haven't calculated it recently, but the last time I did, it was buku. And it's been adding up and going up and up, but it's showing up in the cost of goods. Okay. It shows up in the cost of goods, not as a separate line. It's not somewhere in the notes. Oh, here's how much money we're going to get from the federal government. It just reduces the cost of goods. So I think we'll see a margin increase because of that. And then finally, we'll see a margin increase on increasing FSD uptake. So I believe that ever since 12.4, 12.5, when it really got good, and Elon started sending out the free trials and requiring the employees, every time somebody brings a car in for service, every time somebody buys a new car, the employees are required to take them on a 10 or 20-minute drive and show them how to use it. I think that the uptake has probably been much, much stronger. Again, it shows up, though, in the cost of goods. It doesn't show up as a separate line item. So I would love to have him give us percentages on what the uptakes are and show how that's changing.
Nice. Good list. Great list. I mean, I think the first two are a recognition that even if they're right, and I like you said, the Bitcoin, we don't know. That's a guess. It's going to be recognized that quarter. And then FSC profit recognition, absolutely correct. Problem is, these are like one-time things. So it might show up, but it's not going to move anything in terms of margin.
What will happen, though, is the FSD profit recognition goes forward then at 100%. So that means it'll have a higher impact
from then on.
Quarter from now on. Yeah.
So correct. So, okay. And then, so therefore everybody needs to adjust their margin, their line items of what they expect forecast.
Exactly.
Makes sense. And then I do like this one here, margin increase. I'm not sure about the FSC uptake. I do believe FSC 13 will absolutely cause a massive change in uptake percentages, but I don't think it's going to show up by January 20th. It's going to be tight. I mean, or certainly it has to show up for this quarter. which
yeah.
it's not going to
Again,
show up.
and again, unfortunately, we won't know who's right because he's not giving us the number.
We don't know yet. Well, the reason why they haven't is because it's maybe low
Maybe not been
and
as
they
good as
want to
they
wait.
yeah.
Yeah. But the fact that it's a FSD complete, absolutely true. So you've listed out a number of surprises that might come for 20th.
Right.
What do you expect for the stock, hit today's stock? So obviously here we are last week of December. We're filming this show a week before Christmas, but we'll probably publish it on Christmas. Stock's going up. And then what happens if you get a 1.8 million, plus or minus 20,000 vehicle sales? Nobody, right? Nobody cares. P&D, nobody cares.
Yes. So I think if it's over 500,000 vehicles, nobody's gonna care. And by the way, by the Troy Test came out this morning and raised his number by 10,000, so he's almost at 500,000 now. Not that Troy is the be all and the end all, but
no. It doesn't matter anymore. P&D numbers, volume matters, they'll matter. So the January 3rd comes out, we'll see that. And then the earnings.
And then
is the earnings important?
So
and to what extent?
Earnings is always going to be important, but it's going to be important in the line item sense as opposed to the absolute bottom line, in my opinion. But what's really going to be important is going to be the guidance, and it's going to be Elon's attitude. So we've seen now what a difference it makes, whether he's ebullient, whether he's excited and energized, or whether he's like, well, it's got the interest rates could really create a problem for us next year. So if he's up and he's positive and he gives a positive guidance, Katie bar the door, because we've got all of the pieces in place for this run up, and it's going to be showing next year. My 2026 analysis has always been that's when it all is actually fully ramped.
Yeah, 2026. Right. And I remember AJ, who's one of the Tesla retail analysts, said that it's almost a guarantee that he's going to have to give the guidance for 2023, 2025. And because he's already given it, they already gave the guidance, right? 20-30% growth. They already started laying out what was going to happen in 2025, which dates and so forth. So it's not like you can pull that back out of the box. He's already said. Now he might say, we changed our mind. We're not going to hit the 10-20%, or go the opposite way. Because the volume, the capacity for the amount of the factories that Tesla already has shows that they could actually hit 50% growth. They're capable of doing it, right? And so, but then he only said 2030. So why do you do that? Especially you're coming out with multiple vehicles. And so that's, I think, what we're waiting for, of course. What's your thoughts about these multiple vehicles and when?
So I think it's interesting. I just had a conversation a little while ago about this. I think there's a possibility that the first 2 quarters could be a little soft. And so, we'll have Juniper, which could really,
right.
I'm hoping we'll have Juniper,
slow things down.
In January.
Yeah.
And Juniper could really, put some wind at our back. But the 2.5, the Q, the less expensive vehicle, whatever it's going to be called, that probably doesn't hit until April, May, June, somewhere around there. So that's not going to have an impact until June, July, August. The other side of it, though, is if we get FSD complete, really complete, talk about putting the UN in front of finished. In front of
what?
Unfinished, right? In front of supervised. We're going to take these little letters UN and put them in front of supervised. So that's unsupervised. When that day happens, the sales of the used cars. The used cars will be gone. There won't be any used. You won't be able to find a used Tesla, because all the entrepreneurs are going to come in and grab every single one of them for the future fleet.
That won't happen until mid-year when they launch those programs.
Whenever day the unsupervised happens, even if it's 2 months before robotaxi happens, it's when it's unsupervised. When Tesla says we're going to pay the insurance, when it's our insurance cost if anything goes wrong when the FSD is working, or when he gets in the back seat and plays a video game all the way to New York City while the car takes him there. Whatever the thing is that's done in order to have fun with the public, some kind of a PR stunt. When that happens, The used cars are gone. They're going to be the next day. You won't be able to find a used car for under 30, 40, 50,000. And then
Yep.
you'll have the new cars will start to back up. As to your point,
Yep.
I've come up with, I think, a current capacity of around 3.6 million. I think that's what the real capacity is.
Which is more than 50. It was 50%. Yeah, exactly 50% growth.
No, 100% from 1.8.
100% growth. I'm sorry. Yeah, 1.8 to 3.
Right. So
Well, they won't be able to make that
turn
many
it
of
on
them.
like that,
Yeah.
and it'll already be half a year. So yes, I think the 30% is probably still sandbagging, but yes, I think I don't think the full year 20 to 30% absolutely makes sense, and I don't care.
Right, because
money
even if you carried it, once you see the numbers show up, then they're going to go, well, that means next year is 50% growth, and therefore the following year is another 50. And we're back to the 50% growth again if that all works out.
Yep.
So I want to get to this next topic here, which is the milestones for robots, because I think it's important. I saw this on your post on X. If you're not yet following Randy W. Kirk 1, and you come up with these things, which is great. So you said the most important product ever produced, which is the bot, will begin limited pilot line production 2025. Ooh, you held yourself back there. Good job. Here's my list of hoped for milestones we will see this year. And if all are met, Tesla will never be under $1,000 again. I like that. Good point. You made this list and then you refined it. So here's your list. Go ahead and walk me through.
All right. So first of all, you need to achieve the human speed of action. Okay, right now they all look so clumsy and they're just, they're not quite moving at human speed. And so it makes them look awkward and it just don't feel right. You want them to have that thing that where the customer and also the consumer and the stock buyer all feel that it looks right. And so I want to see it operating at human speed, whether it's walking, whether it's moving its arms, whether it's doing a task, to come up to human speed. I think we're really close. I think the videos we've seen recently of catching the ball and walking down the hill, I think those show us that we're very, very close to human speed of action. So that would be the first kind of milestone that I'm looking for.
Again, whenever I ask these CEOs of humanoid bot companies this question, they all say the same thing, which is speed is actually, I don't think they use the word trivial, but they'll say that it's not as hard, meaning to say that once they solve the autonomy part of it, telling it to move twice as fast or 3 times as fast than what they're now doing, it's not an issue. And also, of course, they don't want to break the bots because they're so expensive. They're just creating prototypes right now. Once they get to the point where, okay, this is design complete, I'm going to start mass producing these things, they'll just reduce speed. We already seen companies like Sanctuary just crank up the speed and showed you that can do human speed if they want to, or the other company from China. They're like Fourier, or not Fourier. Yeah, I think Fourier, right? That can run as fast as it can, fastest runner in the world, those kind of things. So yeah, not an issue. Okay, achieve human speed of action.
Right. So number 2, and this is a big one, training. I want them to be able to be trained from watching. So, see and say, voice commands, simulation, and then also the remote teleoperation, which we know they're using. I'm pretty sure they're using simulation. They're probably already playing around with voice commands, would be my guess. And they've already said that they should be able to learn from watching, and that should be watching a human or watching a video. So if they can do all those things, or if they can do most of those things, and if they could show us, if they could give us some kind of demonstration or some kind of description, one of the people in the lab, or one of the engineers kind of walk us through how they're doing it, whatever method they want to use, that would give me a lot of confidence that they're using all or most of these approaches for training, because eventually it's got to be trained by somebody out on a factory floor someplace. And these are the kinds of ways that a factory supervisor would be able to teach the bot.
Good one. Low bar though. That guy's, they're doing this already.
I think it is too.
But it's a good one. I mean, like you can't move forward unless these things are knocked out and they showed it to you. Okay.
All right. The next one is maybe my favorite, and I just heard it from somebody else the other day. I didn't ever think about this, but I really think this is a biggie. And maybe, again, it's maybe really easy. Once they get the actions going, they can get this going fast, is to achieve the human speed of decision-making and taking action. We know that the cars already do that. They do it probably, well, I'm sure they do it faster than humans in terms of decision making and taking action. But right now, the bots always look a little like, okay, should I? And sometimes the car does too. Like when you're at McDonald's and you're trying to go through the the drive-through lane, the car's sitting there jittering because it can't decide how to
Right.
exactly get
Yeah.
in the lane. So I like to see the bots where the speed of decision making and the taking action is very smooth and human like. Again, it's more of a perception thing because on the factory floor, what do I care? If it can work at 75% of human speed, okay, that's cool. And
Yeah.
maybe I need two bots on the same line, but it's still going to be a big, big savings.
Yeah.
Next
I
is
love this one.
my
Go
favorite,
ahead.
my
Yeah.
number one favorite. Actually, the two together.
Voice and conversation.
First, you
Yep.
got to add voice.
Yep.
You can add voice like Siri, which is useless, but at least Siri talks to me, but it's terrible. Or you can add voice, which you need, and then add conversational style, like every robot movie that's ever been made. I want to be able to, talk to my robot like a friend. That's so I want to be able to see that. When I can see that, man, I'm going to sell my house and buy stock.
Yeah, my theory on this is if they wanted to, they could have done it just like ChatGPT and Figure already demoed it, right? But I think that OpenAI, XAI, which is Elon's other company, they are not going to show it in the car in Tesla's cars or Tesla's bots until they figured out the relationship.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, they could do it if they wanted to, but they don't want to do it until they figured out that, how much ownership does Tesla have? What is the actual relationship that the two parties will need to have?
Interesting. I thought when you started to say the sentence, I thought you were going to finish the end of the sentence by saying not until Grok is actually doing it online in conversation.
Well, that's a good point. That's a good point. But again, I think it's a low bar because everyone else, all the other LLMs could do it. So it's not, I would not expect that this was some sort of challenge that these guys can't do yet.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay.
Next one is many, many more demonstrations of autonomous, meaningful work. So not remote control, but actual, fully on autonomous, meaningful work. Soldering, welding, screwing things in, picking something up and doing some kind of precision kind, not just these kind of bulky things that you can do fairly easily, but more precise actions. But again, I've never quite understood why this is so hard, but I've never been in that factory. I've never been there with the robot trying to get it to do anything. Larry said on my show last week, he says he was there watching them do this in one of those factories. And he says, yeah, it's painstaking to get these robots to do some of these tasks. So anyway, that's probably the most important thing on the list because the more things it can do that are useful, the more useful it is. And the more likely it is that factories are going to line up and say, I got to have one next week.
Yeah. I'm not, so I think that more demonstration of more autonomous, meaningful work, like you've described, is important and it would be a real driver. But I'm not going to be disappointed if all it could do is pick and place and that's all it ever did for the next year. I'm okay with that too. I think that there's such a huge market for it and a huge benefit already for Tesla already. But yeah, it obviously the more tasks it can do autonomously, the more broader the market is, and that's what they need to demonstrate. So,
okay. And the next one would be interaction with humans and other bots in real world situations. So we saw a nice demonstration of that at 1010. We saw the bots interacting with humans and other bots, but it's not. It may be less complex in a factory, and yet in some ways more complex in a factory. So how does that relationship work? How do they interact with one another? The socialization of the Optimus with the environment that it's going to be in needs to be able to be anywhere it goes and work fairly easily. So the more of that we can see, the more confidence again everybody I think will have.
Yeah, I love this one. It needs to happen in 2025. So what this is they call it cobot certification. This is the ability for a bot to be able to work side by side with vulnerable humans, people like elderly, children, wheelchair, because they're very dangerous. They can hurt people. So safety and regulations means that you as a bot manufacturer have to get it certified. It's cobot certified. And when I talked to these, executives at these other humanoid bot companies, the common theme was, we're not going to get there until a year and a half. In fact, one company told me, Justin Bieber had asked, can you bring some bots over, and I want them serving drinks? They had to turn them down because they're not cobot certified. Now, when Tesla showed 20 bots walking in We Robot, they had 5 people kind of guarding the bot, trying to make sure people aren't going to hit it. But it's the way that the bot is designed and how it moved, and pretty confident at this point that they're not going to hurt anybody, right? I think one bot actually snagged somebody's purse at the actual event. So I think that was the closest. But yeah, this is a big deal. If they can now finally show that these bots can work side by side with humans, that is a big deal.
All right. And of course, a start of a limited production or pilot line. So we've got clear evidence, lots and lots of job descriptions of people they've been hiring, I want to say for at least 6 months now, that were hired to set up the production line, hired to manage the people that are going to run the production line. So somewhere, somehow, they're setting up a pilot line. And if they're going to make 1,000 to 3,000 bots next year in 2025, that pilot line should be pretty close to ready to go. Now, the hand, they've made a tremendous amount of changes to the hand and arm, I guess, which now this is like kind of one part.
Yeah.
So that could have slowed them down in terms of that part of the componentry. But that, unless they've made a lot of changes to other parts, other componentry could have been going along, or they could, make modifications in the line if they've already gotten so far. But at some point in 2025, we're going to need this pilot line.
Yeah. I mean, it's looking good, right? Because Elon said that by the end of this year, which is where we're at today, right? Mm-hmm. They're going to have the 3rd generation of the Optimus prototypes. Mm-hmm. And the hand was the key thing. So when we saw that integrated to the hand, not just, separated by itself, that is very good news, saying that they're headed towards design lock for at least the version 1. Which is what they're going to use in the factories. And then version 2 the next year is what they're going to sell to everybody else. So yeah, I'm pretty confident they have, and they had 40, right? There's I think somebody saw on the We Robot, if you look at the right shoulder, they had numbers on these bots. Yeah, it went up to 44. Uh-huh. So that means that they must have had at least 44 bots already. And that's a lot. That's crazy. A lot for this time.
I will say that I'm not always right. And Scott Walter and I, we were pretty darn sure they would have 500 to 1,000 working now. So we missed that number by a lot.
But the reason why is because of versions, and they decided to go and improve the hands. They thought it was important. Not all bot companies, in fact, no other bot companies decided to go down this route, which is, the wrist. Right? They took away all the actuators from the hand, the palm, and they moved it to the arms. And that means that you have to have tendons just like humans do. Well, that could break. That means that you can't do a 90 degree and you can't carry 50 pounds.
Right.
Because you're doing this way, but it turns out that Tesla can do it. They solved that major critical problem. So that's what they did, right? They, like you said, they slowed things down until they got that one down, right?
Right. So putting 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 produced and to work in 2025, which is their goal. An announcement of a partnership with a third party for testing. I would like to see that happen in 2025.
Right.
People are talking about Pepsi being an obvious one for pick and place and other kinds of warehouse jobs and things of that nature, possibly even some production jobs. I'd love to see them. My choice has always been In and Out. In and Out. I don't know under the current leadership, but prior to the death of the original founders, they were always so aggressive in terms of doing things new and doing things smart. I think if they could get an Optimus in 10 of their locations or whatever, flipping hamburgers, that would, or even peeling potatoes or cleaning and making sure that the Coke machines are working. that would be very, very cool, very fun, very consumer facing, and would give them a tremendous opportunity for that socialization piece also.
Well, I'll come back. I'll come back to these next three, but keep going. Yeah, finish this
Okay,
one.
and then a major reveal. So this in 2025, in order for the stock to go to who knows what, and I mean that seriously. I don't even want to put a number on it short of 10,000 because I don't know what the stock market will do if they have the reveal I'd like to see. And the reveal I'd like to see would be clear proof of usefulness, giving us the specs, the pricing, and the production plan. So some ideas would be that there would be literally a factory tour showing the hundreds of these or thousands of these bots in the factory, or maybe it's a drone fly through where the drone is hovering and watching the various bots at various positions. But as important as it is to show them in the real world, doing real world tasks and as many as possible, is also the specs and the pricing and the production plan. The street is going to want to see those. They're going to want to see, are you going to charge $70,000 a year? Is that the deal? Is it going to be rental? Is it going to be $200,000 a piece or $100,000 a piece? What is and you're going to sell it? If you sell it for $100,000, are you still going to charge $5,000 a year for over the air updates? I mean, how does it work? What is the business plan?
I love it. Okay, so these three here, right? The selling to the third party, which is the partnership announcement or a major. So I think the major reveal could work with the first 1,000 produced internally, but in order for them to say the pricing and all that, then they need to have a third party, right? So it's kind of like half one and half the other of these three. And so that may or may not come 2025. Could happen at the last bit, maybe, but he did promise that it'll be sold to other parties in 2026, but it could be late, right? Now, but think about that you were saying this, 1,000 produced. What if they only had 500? What if there's 500 working in the factories of Tesla?
Yeah.
Imagine that visual, just a major reveal. And they go, let me show you what's actually happening. And just like we robot, you turn one way, you turn the other, you're seeing all these bots and they're all doing work. 500 though. This isn't just 5 or 6 or 10. We've got 500.
Yes.
I just think that visual could be.
Well, you could have them all together, 500, coming into the door to the plant, and then there's the time card, and they're all getting their time card.
No need to do that, but beep, beep, the lights turn on, and then they go to work, right?
That's right.
I mean, just showing them at work, but it's such a spectacle of not just 20, 30, 40. We're talking 500, 1,000 maybe even. That's what's going to blow people's minds. Now, there'll still be others who'll say, like you just mentioned, which is, no, who cares? Got to show me. You got to show me that they're making money. You got to show me until they sold it to somebody and they tell me the pricing. But that's still, I do think that this could be very interesting. Nice list. I like this a lot. It's pretty complete, I think.
Mm-hmm. Good. Appreciate it.
Optimus progress milestones in 2025. Some of the surprises for earnings. You're still pretty bullish. 10,000 by 2030. You laid it out. Now, didn't you say that by 2027, you still only think maybe, what was the number you had? Only even like possibly $700? Like even not
No.
a lot.
2025, my number is 700
next year,
plus.
700 to 1,000, which is where most people are now, by the way. Yeah.
Well, by the way, I was first. People can go back. People can go back to my video. I went back and looked it up. September 2nd is when I first said 700 for next year.
Yeah.
And now AJ and Dan Ives and like everybody else is coming to my number. So yeah, I felt that 700. I felt that and that was, by the way, and I did it with a full spreadsheet, and that was just based on taking the 20 to 30% increase in cars, of an increase in FSD, and the mega factories. That's all you needed. And then, with a projection and a decent PE, I think I had a 65 PE. It wasn't even like 130 like now. And you could get to the $700 number that way.
Yeah, AJ did it. He said 73 PE, and it's all based on earnings. future earnings going to brought down to 2027.
Yeah.
All based on earnings, not even like any kind of story narrative needed here.
Right.
Very good, Randy. Appreciate you. We'll see what the audience thinks, because in the past they used to say that, oh, that Uber bull, Randy, crazy.
Well, we're dealing with a crazy guy. I mean, when you're dealing with the Elon Musk,
Yeah.
and yeah, sure, he's late. Not always. Every once in a while, he's on time. But when you're dealing with somebody that has the kind of vision that he does, with the kind of execution that he's proven over and over again that he executes. I mean, when I saw that booster come down and get caught by the Megazilla, it was like as inspiring as anything you're ever going to see in your lifetime. That was just craziness. Yeah. So, and then he turns around and wins the election by spotting the fact that men in the Midwest weren't going to the polls as often as the women were, and just going out and finding a way to get the men to go to the polls and increase the number of under $100,000 a year working men. He got more of them to go to the polls. I mean, it's this first principles thinking and then execution. It's just mind-boggling.
Yeah, I think the difference between when you and I did these shows a year ago versus now was when you said 10,000 by 2030. It's like, where'd that number come from? Today, you've got Elon himself. That's what you just said, right? Elon himself is saying 35 trillion just for the bots. We can have billions of bots. I mean, that numbers he's throwing out is crazy numbers.
And part of it too is very few people on this that are, doing YouTubes or on X or whatever actually have ever run a factory. Okay. And it was a small factory. I only had 100 employees, but it was a factory. And as soon as I saw the bot, the very first time I saw it, I was like, oh, I could have used one of those here. I could have used one of those over here. I mean, the way it was the very first time, not the person inside the suit, but the very first time he brought out the one that was all bolted together with the parts that you could buy online. And he put that thing out. I'm like, no, that would already work. That would already work in my factory.
Yeah. Factory business owners know how difficult it is with their employees, how tough it is. And so you're like, even if it's 1/3 the speed, I can already calculate and tell you that it's worthwhile. So thank you so much, Randy. That was fun. Appreciate you. Follow Randy on X at, what is it? Randy W. Kirk 1 on
that's right.
X.
W.
There you go.
W. Kirk 1. Yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
Please follow
Appreciate
me.
you.
But I'm trying to get to 10,000. Hopefully by Christmas.
Oh, you will. You'll get it. All right, buddy. See you soon. Bye, all. I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.